Welcome to Vermontitude, a collaborative effort between Great Eastern Radio, the Brattleboro Reformer, and BCTV to bring you the stories behind the stories on the topics you want to learn more about. Because there's always more, so there'll always be Vermontitude. Hosted by me, Peter Fish Case. Welcome to Vermontitude. New episodes drop every Tuesday and can be found by going to Vermontitude.com, Reformer.com, Brattleboro.tv, and locally on Comcast Channel 1078. We come to you from our studios at the Innovation Box on Flat Street. I'm Peter Fish Case, and each week I cover the topics that are of concern to Windham County and the towns that reside within its borders. Joining Vermontitude today, Windham County's other freshman senator, Wendy Harrison. A few weeks back, we talked with Nader Hashim in the hot seat, and now it's Wendy's turn. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, so let's do this. When Nader came in, we kind of just sort of said, all right, so it's your first year. Give us a quick assessment. Are you enjoying yourself? Are you sad you signed up?
Not at all sad and not at all bored. Okay. There's a lot to do, and I feel very useful.
Oh, good. Oh, great. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I want to be useful. So before we talk about the legislature, can I talk a little bit about what Brattleboro has done for storm resiliency? Because it's very relevant to what we just experienced.
I am slightly familiar with this.
I bet you are.
All right.
And I hope it continues. As all of us know, climate change is here. Mm-hmm. We're going to have more of these storms. The work that Brattleboro has done to restore floodplains has made a tremendous difference. I want to find out how much of a difference. I want to actually figure out a way to measure it. But the two places that the public can see it are at Melrose in West Brat. You were here during Irene.
Yes,
I wasn't here then. After Irene, the town decided that the houses that were flooded should not be rebuilt.
Right.
So the Housing Authority moved all those folks, built Red Clover Commons to house them, and turned that property into a floodplain.
Right.
Which was difficult to do. But it worked. The floodplain actually worked and mitigated the whetstone this time. And now there's a second project that's going on at the end of Burge Street.
Yep.
You're aware of that?
I am.
And I hope you support it. It's in process now. I believe the town is working with the Vermont River Conservancy.
Yes.
And it's just wonderful. And so I am going to advocate for projects like that in the State House.
I think they're very important.
Totally.
I do.
I mean, they save lives and they save property, and they're necessary.
Right. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So I love that you said that you feel useful.
Oh.
I think that is for a politician, I think that should be the number one thing that you say. And I think that not that I've had a bunch of politicians on this program, but I think you are the first to say that.
Oh.
So thank you for that.
Of course. No, it's important to me to just feel like I'm making good use of my time.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've noticed in the legislature is all of my past experience, my experience as a parent was tremendously important to the child care bill.
Right.
My experience in my professional work in housing was hugely relevant in the housing bill. As a town administrator, town manager, I knew what towns struggle with.
Yep.
So when I was looking at legislation and suggesting changes, I could look at it from the point of view of a town, and I would know more about what would be beneficial and what wouldn't. And I would also know who to ask questions of and who to invite to the table,
right?
Too, because of my experience. So, no, I feel very useful.
Good. All right, let's talk about some of the things. I think when we had Nader in the hot seat.
It's not that hot.
No, it's not. The air does not move well in
That's
this
true.
studio,
The room is a hot room.
The room is a little warm. But let's talk about the things that you've worked on. Now, I have a top 5 thing. I was concerned that might be too many, but you rattled off like a bunch of stuff. So let's get into it.
I'm really proud of us, and it's us as a group. It's the legislature.
Right.
No one person can get anything done. There's 30 senators and 150 members of the House, so there's a lot of us.
Yeah.
But this last year, we tackled climate change, we tackled housing, we tackled childcare. And when I say tackled, we actually made significant strides forward to addressing these issues. We did universal school meals. We did 2 gun bills, which that's memorable. And we also did a really big workforce bill, which impacts everything. And a lot of these things interconnect.
Let's talk about the gun bill now. What did that look like? What are the? You say you passed 2 of them.
We had 2. One was to prevent situations that, like the one that what's happening in Pownell, where there's a training center.
Yeah,
that
military or a what do they call those? It escapes me. But yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that the state had no legislation that would prevent that, and the town wasn't able to do anything about it. So that bill was actually supported by almost all of the Republicans and all of the Democrats.
Militia.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right. So that was great. And then we did a suicide prevention bill that also included safe storage. And I thought the way that we did the safe storage was really effective because we didn't tell gun owners how they have to store their guns. But we said if a gun gets into the wrong hands, like a child or a person who shouldn't have a gun, and they do something bad, that gun owner would be held liable.
Wait a minute. So, that sounds a little bit like common sense.
Sorry, it happened. But I thought that was really logical because then people can figure out how to keep the guns away from those who shouldn't have them. And they have individual agency in that.
Yeah. No, I think that's responsible. It's too bad that it has to rise to that level in order for people to say now it's a law. I mean,
right,
people,
that's true.
They
should do it anyway.
You should.
Yes.
So all right, good for you.
And I think a lot of Vermonters do. I mean, people obviously don't want guns in the hands of their children.
No, they don't. And I think that most people who are responsible gun owners already are doing that.
Yes.
But there are always, as we alluded to before we went on, it always seems to be a little bit of a minority that directs the majority, and that's too bad. But so good for you. What else?
You want to talk about housing?
Yes.
Housing has been a big topic. It's a big problem. It's been a challenge in Vermont as well as the rest of the country. So we are not alone.
Right.
There's a lot of economic reasons behind it. There's a lot of structural reasons. What we did in the Economic Development Committee, which is where I serve, we were very strategic. We wanted to be comprehensive and specific at the same time. So we looked at what towns can do better to encourage housing. And we also looked at the market and we funded certain types of housing. So just what we did with towns, because town zoning has had the impact of reducing housing and making it so that you can't redevelop properties. And I had seen that as a town official in Vermont, where, for example, parking requirements mean that someone who wants to come in and redevelop a property, even just to restore a historic building that has been multifamily, that they can't do it because the parking requirements are greater than they were when the house was built. So we have a lot of communities that used to hold double the people that are there now. So we really need to use the buildings that we already have and upgrade those buildings.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we supported and expanded is a program called VHIP. It's Vermont Housing Improvement Program, and it actually gives grants and loans to private owners, which is a new thing. Our standard way of making affordable housing was through the nonprofit agencies, and they do a great job. Windham Windsor is our local agency. So this program, though, is for owners of historic buildings, typically, not necessarily historic, but they often are, to bring units up to code, apartment units up to code. And so they can get a loan or a grant. You can get a grant if you focus on folks exiting homelessness, but you basically get more depending on the level of public benefit. But there is a public benefit to restoring these properties, but because some of these properties are just going to fall down if we don't restore them. So that's a great program. And just one other thing about that program is it's very efficient. In Windham County, for the last year and a half, the state paid an average of $22,000 roughly to get each unit upgraded, which is much less than building a new unit. It's like 10% of what it costs.
And we're talking about like these big old rambling Victorian homes that you see, like if you are in Brattleboro, you see these massive homes that used to be single family homes that can be converted into 4 and 5 different units.
Right. And many of them are already 4 and 5 different units. Yeah. Many of them that are still single family have one person living in them. So one of the programs, for example, that we looked at was home sharing. Right. Because that's another way to make what we have more efficient.
Right. You know, Anna Marie Pluhar? Yeah. We just had her on the program a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
She's a great advocate.
Yeah. She really is. Yeah. She opened my eyes to a lot of very distinct possibilities. All right. So the housing we've got.
And Act 250. Do you want me to talk about Act 250 a little bit? Because one thing that surprised me, because I've been involved in development for decades, and I've heard a lot of complaining about Act 250, but then there are a lot of folks who really appreciate Act 250 because it does protect the environment and just the landscape of Vermont. What we found when we drilled down and asked very specific questions to developers was that it's the appeal processes of Act 250 that are really the problem. The regulations, many developers they're annoyed at any regulation. Right. But it's the appeal process because it's unknown. That is the real problem. So that's what I want to work on next year. We did modify the appeal process for municipal appeals. Okay. And so we made that better. It's good to know. For developers. And we did do a temporary change where we're allowing 25 units in downtown areas, in designated areas, instead of 10 units. Okay. And that's a 3-year exemption. So we'll see how that works. It'll be a good test. So
here's a big question with regards to housing. So we know that some of it's being relabeled as like workforce housing at market rate. Market rate is this nice fancy term, which basically means it's more or less too expensive for people to afford. Right. I mean, under current earning potential in the state of Vermont, is there anything that you can do about that?
What we're doing is we're funding the fund that funds the folks like Windham Windsor Housing Trust. Yeah. We're trying to get that up to its full requirement for funding. So we funded that more. We funded manufactured homes because they are in a category different from others, and they've been neglected for a long time. So we're actually working on a more structure for those homes. We put in money to help upgrade their water and sewer systems because it's been many of them are very they're dilapidated by now, the systems. Right. So we want to restore those systems. So we've done that. And then the VHIP helps with affordable housing, but not controlled rent. Right. Housing. All right. And basically things like tiny homes, infill, home sharing, those are all affordable.
Yeah. No, that's great. All right. Let's give you the parting shot. What's the one thing that you want people to know that you did while you were up there?
Housing was really important, and I had a big part in that. And then workforce. Yeah. We don't talk about that very much, but workforce is critical right now to housing and to everything. The housing builders have trouble getting their few employees to work sometimes, and sometimes it's because of childcare, right? Which is crazy. So all these things that we work on are all connected. So I'm proud of what I did in childcare, just supporting it. We had to override vetoes. Yeah, that's a tough thing to do. To override the governor's veto. It's
got to get a big buy-in.
you need a big buy-in, and it's a more significant vote, which I didn't realize that until I was there. That it's different from a regular vote. It just feels different.
It's intense.
Yeah, it really is.
It goes up to 11 at that point.
Right, but it's important. I mean, people need childcare, and I'm excited about childcare as something that's not beneficial only to families and obviously to the kids themselves, but it's also an economic development issue too. And I think I'll talk a little bit about, if we have time, about taxes, because there's a new tax, a new payroll tax that was needed to fund the childcare.
Right.
And I won't get into too many details. People can contact me if they want to talk more. But we had one employer who said he could get back the monthly cost of childcare in 3 days of regular operations of his business because he will have employees. So they've calculated that. And so employers actually want us to move forward on this, and they were willing to pay the tax. That's what they told us.
I think sometimes when people just sort of slow down and look at some of these things as being a way to increase profit and not expense, I think is a better way to look at it. And that's what you're working on.
Yes. And our employers care about their employees, which is great. And I love working in Vermont, living in Vermont.
This has been Wendy Harrison. She is Windham County's other freshman senator, doing some good work. Thank you for jumping on Vermontitude.
Thank you.